What if I told you that scrolling through Instagram today isn't all that different from watching a 1950s beauty pageant? Sure, there are no tiaras, but the performance still there. The pressure to smile just right, pose just so, and appear effortlessly beautiful hasn't disappeared. It's simply gone digital. Once, women were judged under stage lights by panels of men. Now we're judged by likes, algorithms, and anonymous comments. And even though we call it self-expression, the truth is we're still performing for approval, for visibility, and often for the male gaze. This isn't just about vanity or nostalgia. It's about how femininity has been shaped and sold for decades. The pageant girl had to be poised, photogenic, and non-threatening. Today's Instagram baddie or clean girl still checks many of the same boxes. Attractive, aspirational, but never too real. The backdrop may have changed from a stage to a screen, but the script feels eerily familiar. We live in a world where being beautiful isn't enough. You also have to make it look effortless. You have to sell it, curate it, filter it. And while we traded ball grounds for selfies and judges for followers, the message hasn't evolved much. Be desirable, be likable, be perfect, or at least appear to be. So today we're pulling back the curtain. We're looking at how the performance of femininity has evolved, why it still centers around external validation, and what it means to exist under constant surveillance, not by the government, but our own front-facing cameras. Because maybe the pageant never ended. Maybe it's just got rebranded. Chapter 1. The Rise of the Beauty Pageant. Let's rewind to the mid-20th century America, a time when gender roles were clearly defined, rigidly enforced, and most entirely wrapped in tulle and lipstick. The 1950s were a decade obsessed with appearances, the pristine suburban home, the sparkling kitchen appliances, the nuclear family with picture-perfect children, and at the center of it all was the ideal woman, demure, well-groomed, and utterly devoted to looking the part. One of the most visible and culturally sanctioned platforms for showcasing this ideal was the Miss America pageant, which began as a tourism gimmick in 1921, became a full-blown and national event by the 1950s. Broadcast on television to millions of viewers, it offered a seductive mix of glamour, patriotism, and old-fashioned competition. But beneath the glitzy surface, the pageant served as a powerful symbol of how society wanted women to behave, and more importantly, how they wanted them to look. Officially, the Miss America competition included categories like talent, evening wear, and interview skills. It claimed to celebrate the well-rounded woman. But in practice, the pageant also prioritized physical beauty and public decorum above all else. Contestants were judged on their ability to embody a very specific type of femininity. One that was elegant but not edgy, charming but not assertive, sexy but still appropriate. The swimsuit competition in particular made this glaringly obvious. Women's bodies were literally scored, inch by inch, by panels of mostly male judges. The physical expectations were strikingly narrow. There was a Miss America look, typically thin with symmetrical features, coiffed hair, and a megawatt smile. It was beauty boiled down to a formula, something that could be measured, judged, and mass-produced. Any deviation from the standard, whether it be race, body type, or personality, was quietly excluded. In fact, it wasn't until 1984 that Vanessa Williams became the first black woman to win Miss America. Even then, she faced intense backlash and was later pressured to resign over a scandal that many believe was rooted more in race and respectability politics than the actual incident itself. The pageant wasn't just entertainment, it was instructional. It showed little girls and grown women alike what was expected of them. Beauty, after all, was a woman's greatest currency in a world where her opportunities were limited. Pageants turned that beauty into a commodity, something that could be ranked, crowned, and consumed. And while the winners received scholarships, modeling contracts, and a year of public appearances, they were also expected to become living advertisements for a specific version of womanhood. Gracious, wholesome, and above all, non-threatening. It's worth noting that pageants also had a veneer of mediocrity. They were one of the few ways women could gain visibility, wealth, and status in a male-dominated world, especially in an era where most career paths were closed off. For some, the crown offered upward mobility, a ticket out of a small town, or even a stepping stone into media and politics. But this opportunity came with strings attached. The freedom it offered was conditional. You could rise as long as you didn't disrupt the fantasy. Still, women were never just passive dolls in the system. Many used the pageant stage to challenge norms in subtle ways, advocating for causes, pushing for diversity, or using the platform to pursue education and independence. Some even managed to subvert the system from within, planting early seeds for more expansive definitions of femininity. But for the most part, the pageant format left little room for deviation. If you wanted to win or even just be seen, you had to fit the mold. What's fascinating and maybe a little unsettling is how much of this framework still exists today. Think about the kind of women who rise to visibility on Instagram, the same narrow beauty ideals, the same pressure to be perfect, presentable, and appealing to a wide, often male audience. Even the rise of authentic influencers is often packaged through a lens of curated imperfection, a performance of relatability that still somehow ends up selling products and projecting desirability. So maybe the real question is, how much has actually changed? Have you ever noticed how mid-century beauty standards still echo in today's media? From pastel dresses and retro waves to the way we value poise and polish. Why are we still clinging to that image? And what happens when we don't fit into it? Chapter 2, Instagram and the filtered self. Fast forward to today. The stage lights of the pageant have been swapped for the soft glow of ring lights and iPhone flashes. We no longer need a national broadcast or a shiny crown to enter the beauty competition. In fact, most of us are already in it. Whether we realize it or not, Instagram, TikTok, and other visual-first platforms have become the new arenas of feminine performance, and the contestants are everyone with a front-facing camera. While Instagram isn't technically a beauty competition, the vibe often says otherwise. Scroll your feed and you're met with a never-ending lineup of looks. Contour-heavy glam girls, minimal clean girl influencers, soft vintage coquettes, gym-toned influencers, and girls who have mastered the delicate art of looking effortlessly put together. The categories may be more expansive than in a traditional pageant, but the underlying game remains eerily familiar. Look beautiful, play the part, and hope for validation in the form of likes, saves, and algorithmic blessings. Instead of judges holding up scorecards, we now have metrics, engagement, impressions, followers, reach. These have become the new indicators of beauty and social value. The more desirable you appear, the more the algorithm favors you. And it's not just about being pretty, it's about being legibly pretty in a very specific internet-approved way. Instagram is a decentralized pageant where no one gets crowned, but some women still win. They land brand deals, visibility, influence. Others, they fade into the scroll. What makes it even more complex is the illusion of authenticity. While beauty pageants in the 50s were obviously performances, Instagram encourages women to perform realness. You have to look perfect but make it seem accidental. Your no makeup selfie probably includes tinted moisturizer, eyebrow gel, and a subtle filter. Your gym selfie might have been taken 5 times to get the right lighting. Effortlessness has become its own aesthetic, and achieving it is exhausting, and yet we buy into it. Not because we're shallow, but because this is the language of digital belonging. In a world where everyone is constantly posting and performing, not participating often feels like invisibility. We curate ourselves not just for men, though the male gaze is deeply embedded in platform dynamics, but for brands, for algorithms, for each other. Social media has turned personal expression into a product, and beauty is the packaging. The rise of aesthetic subcultures on Instagram adds another layer. In the pageant era, there was largely one acceptable form of femininity. Now we have multiple templates to choose from. The clean girl with her slick back bun and gold hoops. The coquette girl, all pink ribbons and Lana Del Rey captions. The baddie, hyper glam and unapologetically sexy. The wellness girl, all oat milk lattes and Pilates studios. Each niche has its own set of rules: what you wear, how you pose, what you caption. These are less subcultures than they are micro pageants, with their own scripts for how to embody beauty today. And this is where filters come in, literally. Unlike the 50s when you had to be beautiful to meet the standard, today you only have to appear beautiful. Filters offer a kind of cheat code. Want bigger eyes, sharper cheekbones, fuller lips? There's a filter for that. Don't like the shape of your nose? Facetune it. The digital self has become so heavily edited that it's increasingly divorced from reality. And yet, the more we see these filtered faces, the more we expect to look like them in real life. The effects are tangible. Dermatologists and plastic surgeons report a rising demand for their Instagram face, a blend of features that are racially ambiguous yet Eurocentric, doll-like yet natural. It's a face defined by symmetry, fullness, and flawlessness, and one that rarely exists without digital intervention. We've reached a strange moment where beauty isn't about achieving a standard anymore, it's about simulating it, and being penalized for when you can't pull it off in 4K. The hypervisual culture also reinforced who gets to be seen, heard, and celebrated. Just like the Miss America stage, Instagram rewards a narrow slice of beauty. Thinness, whiteness, youth, and wealth continue to dominate, even in spaces that claim to be inclusive. While there's been no progress, with more representation of different body types, skin tones, and gender expressions, the algorithm often favors content that looks like the old beauty pageant winners. Polished, palatable, and profitable. And yet we keep participating because in some way we have to. Whether you're an influencer, an artist, or a small business owner, or someone who just wants to feel visible in an increasingly online world, you're expected to post your face, your body, and your life. Opting out can feel like you're falling behind. There's also a psychological toll. Studies show a clear link between heavy Instagram use and body image dissatisfaction, particularly among young women. Seeing edited, idealized faces every day doesn't just warp your expectations of others, it distorts how you see yourself. We start chasing an image that was never real to begin with. But still, Instagram offers a paradox. It's oppressive, yes, but also a creative tool, a business opportunity, a community space. Just like some women use beauty pageants to gain visibility in the 20th century, others now use Instagram to build careers, start movements, and share unfiltered truths. The question isn't just whether Instagram is bad, it's whether the culture around beauty has really evolved, or simply been rebranded in pixels and likes. So do you feel like Instagram has changed how you see your own face? What filters or aesthetics do you gravitate towards? And do you feel like it's empowering or just another performance? I mean, in many ways, for me, it feels like a performance. Like if I were to post a photo of myself, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'll probably either want to be wearing makeup or have some sort of like subtle filter on it. But I think it's just ingrained in my head. Chapter 3, Performing Femininity, Then and Now. Let's talk about performance because that's really what this all is. Whether it's on a pageant stage, a dating app profile, or a curated Instagram feed, femininity has long been something women are expected to perform rather than simply inhabit. It's not just about being a woman, it's about looking like one, acting like one, selling the idea of womanhood in a way that others, especially men, find palatable. For much of modern history, this performance has been carefully scripted, and even as the platforms evolve, the pressure to play their part remains. In the 1950s, that script was clear and conservative. A beauty queen had to be attractive, of course, but also modest, wholesome, and well-spoken. The correct answer to a pageant question wasn't necessarily clever, but polite and agreeable. Say world peace. Smile and cue. Be poised, but not provocative. Never let the crown slip. Literally or metaphorically. Even the pageant walk was choreographed to perfection. Not too fast, not too slow, not too sexy. There was the right way to be a woman, and any deviation from that ideal made you unfit for the crown. Magazines, advertisements, and film reinforced this image relentlessly. Women were taught not just how to dress, but how to exist through the eyes of others. Now the stage looks different. There are no sashes, no sequins, no judges seated in a row, but the performance hasn't gone away. It's just migrated to a digital space. On social media and even on LinkedIn, women are still expected to present a polished, curated version of themselves. We've traded ball gowns for brand deals, and instead of smiling for cameras, we're posing for front-facing ones. The vibe might be more casual, more authentic, but the pressure is just as real. You don't just exist online, you must constantly present yourself. Every selfie is a stage, every caption is a line in your ongoing performance. Every story, reel, or TikTok is another act, designed not only to express who you are, but to prove it. And ironically, even the performance of not performing has become a trend. Enter the era of curated authenticity. Now being real is in, but it has to be the right kind of real. The relatable girl aesthetic dominates. Messy buns, dewy skin, oversized sweatshirts, self-deprecating captions. It's not about perfection anymore, it's about perfecting imperfection. Women are expected to be vulnerable, but still attractive, honest, but not too raw, real, but still aspirational. Even crying selfies, no makeup close-ups, and bad day posts are often lit well and strategically edited. Authenticity has become its own aesthetic, a form of performance with its own script, hashtags, and rules. This new era of femininity performance has only added more layers of complexity. In the 50s, the script was at least consistent. Narrow and oppressive, yes, but clear. Now women are juggling multiple personas across multiple platforms. You're expected to be sexy on Instagram, smart on LinkedIn, witty on X, and wholesome on TikTok. It's a constant shifting of mass, adjusting tone and appearance depending on who's watching. You're not just performing for men anymore. You're performing for brands, followers, potential employers, and even strangers on the Explore page. And it's exhausting because behind all of this is the same question, am I enough? But now the question is filtered through likes, comments, shares, and views. The metrics of beauty and femininity have gone digital, but their emotional weight hasn't changed. Every time you post, you open yourself up to judgment. And unlike the neatly confined judging panel of a beauty pageant, the modern woman is evaluated by everyone. Every scroll, like, or ghost view is a silent form of assessment. The gaze hasn't disappeared, it's multiplied, fragmented, and embedded into the very platforms we use to express ourselves. This is why many women describe social media as both empowering and impressive. On one hand, it offers visibility, voice, and agency. You can define your own aesthetic, find your own niche, build a brand around your identity. You can show up as a version of yourself that feels true, and connect with others doing the same. But on the other hand, that version still has to be legible to an audience, still has to be scroll stopping, still has to perform. Even when we feel like we're showing up as ourselves, there's always a degree of calculation. Will this be liked? Will this go viral? Will this keep me relevant? There's also the fear of stepping out of character. Performance studies, there's the concept of role strain, when the expectations of a role become too demanding or contradictory. That's exactly what many women experience online. If you've built a following as the chill girl, what happens when you're angry? If you're the body positive queen, what if you post about weight loss? If your brand is soft and pretty, do you lose followers for expressing political opinions? The pressure to stay on brand becomes a trap, and the freedom we thought we had in these digital spaces starts to feel eerily like the crown we can't take off. In the end, femininity in the digital age may be more expansive, more inclusive, more fluid, but it's still a performance. Whether you're in a tiara or holding a Starbucks cup in a mere selfie, the act of being seen still carries expectations. You must smile, pose, present. You must navigate the ever-changing rules of beauty and relatability. And above all, you must keep the performance going, or risk fading from view. And do you ever feel like you're playing a role in social media? If so, who are you performing for? And what happens when you decide to step out of character? Chapter 4, The Gaze That Never Left. Here's the thread that ties it all together, from the glimmering stages of the 50s beauty pageants to the glowing screens of the Instagram stories. The male gaze. Coined by the film theorist Laura Mulvey in 1975, the term describes how visual media from cinema to advertisements is constructed through a masculine lens, one that positions women as passive objects meant to be looked at, desired, and consumed. But it's more than just camera angles and cleavage shots. The male gaze is a cultural force that teaches women not only how they are seen, but how to see themselves. In the 50s, the gaze wasn't subtle, it was structured, formalized, and institutionalized. Most blatantly in beauty pageants, women were quite literally judged on stage, often by panels of men, with their value broken down into categories: beauty, poise, talent, and swimsuit. Every moment, every smile, every answer was filtered through a patriarchal lens. The ideal woman wasn't just beautiful, she was agreeable, soft-spoken, and never too opinionated. The pageant stage was a spotlighted arena for male approval, and the audience at home learned exactly what was expected of women. This wasn't just entertainment, it was cultural programming. But while the format of the beauty pageant may feel outdated now, its legacy lives on, embedded into the very design of digital platforms we use every day. Today's male gaze doesn't arrive through a judge's panel. It arrives through algorithms, comment sections, and the viral mechanics of Instagram and TikTok. It's sneakier now, less about overt approval and more about subtle patterns. Who gets seen? Who goes viral? Who gets the brand deals? And who is rewarded with attention? Just look at the data. Influencers who conform to narrow standards of beauty, symmetrical faces, and thin bodies often outperform those who don't, regardless of content or quality. Instagram, for all its promises of democratization, still echoes the old beauty hierarchy. The male gaze has been coded into an algorithm, favoring bodies and aesthetics that reflect legacy standards of desirability, often thin and youthful and hyper-feminine. Even platforms that pride themselves on being progressive or inclusive still fall into these patterns. The more someone aligns with the gaze, the more visible they become. And it doesn't stop at being seen, it's about being judged. untouched. Social media creates an environment of constant surveillance where women are always aware of their own visibility. Every post becomes a performance. Is this sexy enough? Is it too sexy? Will this get me unfollowed or objectified? Should I post the gym selfie? Is the caption too political? Is my body too much or not enough? Even so-called feminist spaces online are not immune. The gaze is resilient, shape-shifting. It can wear feminist language while still enforcing patriarchal values. But perhaps the most insidious evolution of the male gaze in the digital age is this. We've internalized it. Women have become both the performers and the audience. We police ourselves. We scroll and compare. We adopt the same metrics to assess our own worth, likes, views, and engagement. The male gaze no longer has to be enforced by men alone. It lives in the back of our minds, guiding what we post, how we pose, and even how we think about ourselves. We've become our own pageant judges, and often the harshest ones. This internalization is what makes breaking the cycle so difficult, because even when we know better, even when we know the image is curated, filtered, and face-tuned, it still hits us somewhere deep. The little voice asking, "Why don't I look like that?" doesn't go away just because we've read a few feminist theory books. The gaze is cultural, but it's also personal, and unlearning it takes time and intention. Still, there is resistance. Creators are pushing back with unfiltered posts, body neutrality content, and alternative beauty narratives. So we're left with a hard question. Is the male gaze still present even in spaces designed by and for women? I mean, I feel like it will always be there in some ways. I mean, because a lot of these things were designed, invented, and men are still kind of controlling everything in many ways. So can we truly pose without performing? Can we be seen without being consumed? Maybe the answer isn't to abandon visibility altogether, but to redefine it. To shift our attention from being looked at to being heard, from appearing perfect to existing fully, to create and share not for approval but for connection. Because until we dismantle the gaze in culture and code and in ourselves, the pageant never really ends. It just changes costumes. So after all of this, the ball gowns and the filters, the stage lights and the ring lights, what have we really learned? In so many ways, the beauty pageant never ended. It just evolved and rebranded and slipped into our pockets. What used to be confined to a single television event is now constant, scrolling, performance. One where everyone has a chance to compete, but only few are truly free. We no longer need a crown or a sash to feel the pressure. The likes, the views, the silent comparisons, they do the job just fine. What's changed is the visibility. Women today have more platforms, more voice, and more access to audience than ever before. But the visibility still comes at a cost. It still asks us to perform not just beauty, but authenticity, relatability, confidence, and vulnerability. It still expects us to be palatable, brand safe, and algorithm friendly. And even when we break the mold, we're still often judged on how we do it. But there's also a power in seeing the machinery for what it is, and recognizing the game is rigged, not because we're failing, but because the standards were never built to accommodate real, complex, diverse womanhood. Understanding the systems, the gaze, the filters, and the algorithm gives us the tools to push back, to create new spaces and scripts. Because here's the truth. Femininity has always been a performance, but performance doesn't have to be inauthentic. It can be art. It can be a protest. It can be something we choose for ourselves and something imposed upon us. And it is interesting, Canada beauty pageants were never a big thing, but I know in the States they were big. I think they even still are today, but it just was never a thing. But it is interesting to relate those old beauty pageants to modern day culture with social media, because in many ways it is very similar. So what do you think? Are we still trapped in digital beauty pageants, or have we started to rewrite the rules? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know. I'm also curious if any of you actually participated in any beauty pageants. It's just a culture that wasn't really popular in Canada. It's just not really a thing, but it is interesting how it's so popular in the United States. So anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this topic.